In this installment of the Strength Training at Home series, we're going to take a look at the Pike Press. The Pike Press is a bodyweight variation of an overhead press movement, which is a good way to train the musculature of your shoulders. Since it would be difficult to yeet your body against gravity using your arms if you are standing upright, we're going to have to flip you upside down so that your body can provide resistance in that plane of motion. If you have access to something like a heavy backpack, dumbbells, resistance bands, what have you, feel free to use those if you want to. You can stand upright and use those to press overhead. You have my blessing to go ahead and do that. That's fine. That's great. If not, generally you're going to have your body around, so that's always going to be an option to you. So for your setup, you can think of it as being similar to starting in a push-up position and then just sort of walking your feet forward. So your hand placement is going to be the same. It's going to be just outside of shoulder width. You're going to have a bend of the hip. This is the major difference. If you're going to walk your feet forward from the push-up position, you're going to have to bend at your hips, and you're going to have your shoulders open, and you're going to sort of like shrug like you're trying to cover your ears with your shoulders while pushing your shoulder blades away from each other. Additionally, you're going to want to keep your abs squeezed and your quadriceps squeezed so that you have relatively straight legs and straight upper body. And you're going to have a neutral neck. Your face is going to be pointing at your feet, basically. For the execution of the pike press, again, very similar to your push-up, you're going to bend at your elbow. You're going to sort of tuck your elbows in close to your body, and your head and your shoulders are going to go forward and down. So we'll take a look at a few reps and kind of give you an idea of what that'll look like. So yeah, you can see the elbows are staying relatively tucked in close to the body. The head and shoulders are moving a little bit forward, and everything in your legs staying straight and your upper body staying relatively straight with those braced abs. You're going to, as you get to the bottom, you're going to lightly touch the top of your head to the ground before extending your elbows and opening up your shoulders to put yourself back in the starting position. So we'll finish up this rep and we'll take a look at a few more, and then we'll go on from there. So you can see I'm trying to cover my ears with my shoulders, staying on my tippy toes, and these body segments are staying relatively rigid. So those are the basics of the pike press. There are a few ways that you can go about making these easier to perform or more challenging. So like I mentioned earlier, it's a lot easier to start off with a weight that is more manageable if you have access to something like a backpack that you can load some things into to provide your resistance. So that way you'd be standing up, you can put in however much weight you're going to be able to use, and you can basically follow the same pattern just sort of in reverse. So you're going to start with your elbows tucked, and you're going to press and shrug your shoulders up at the top with something like that. A way that you can make the pike press a little easier, you can move your feet further away from you. That'll make it slightly easier. If you're having trouble keeping your legs straight, you can also elevate your feet on like a chair or a couch or something like that, and stand on your tippy toes on there, so you don't have to worry about maybe your hamstrings feeling stretched out in that position. Another way you can modify this will make it more difficult, is to increase the range of motion that you're able to go through. So if you're watching this pike press, you'll see, once your head gets stopped by the floor, there's still a lot more range of motion that your elbow joint could go through. So you could go from, it's roughly like here, and then you could keep going like this if the floor isn't in the way. So if you can set yourself up on an elevated surface where your head is going to be clearing the floor or the surface rather that your hands and your feet are on. Say if you're on stairs are one way you could look at it, but I probably wouldn't set yourself up on the top of a set of stairs. Some rooms have like a dip in them, so like some living rooms are sunken in. If you can set yourself up above that sunken area where your head will be able to touch the ground that's sunken in, that's one way to increase your range of motion. Probably a more straightforward way, if you don't have something like that, is placing your hands on an elevated surface using something like books or blocks or something. Maybe a deck box, if you have that lying around, that might work. So that's one way that you can increase the range of motion and make it more difficult. Another way that you can make it more difficult is to bring your feet either closer in or even just doing the press in a handstand. So if your feet are directly above your shoulders, that's going to be more weight that you're going to be having to push against gravity for your press. So that's a good way. That's a good number of ways for you to modify your pike press to make it easier or harder. If you found this useful or you have any questions or comments, you can leave those down below. I'm happy to respond to those. If you have any interest in following along for future videos, you can subscribe or follow the Facebook page if you're watching that there. And good luck with your overhead press variants. If you're doing the pike press or something with a backpack or a handstand, they're all good, and good gains.